Hello. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Field Service Live. I'm your host, James Leichter. We're here every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. This is being recorded live, so people can listen to it later if they like, and we're going to be turning these into podcasts soon, so you'll be able to download this from your favorite podcast provider. Hey, feel free to ask questions during this presentation tonight. More questions, the better. Just type them into the little chat window. We'll do our best to answer those. And if you have questions after you've watched the recorded event, you can always post those questions, and I'll do my best to answer those. I mean, I got nothing else to do during the day, so, I just do this and go home. So I'll answer those during my day job, and I really appreciate getting those. Actually, it's a lot of fun. If you are interested in being a guest on this show, if you think you have something to say that the field service industry would like to hear about, we'd love to have you, or at least consider you. Maybe you know someone that might be wanting to be a guest on the show. Let us hear from you. We're always looking for real talent. I mean, not people like me. I'm talking real talent. It would be nice to have somebody on here that was really talented. So I think I want to introduce my guest. I'm really excited to have an old friend on here who is a fellow heating and air conditioning person like I am. His name is James Gallant. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So by way of a little background, James is the owner of Envirotech, right? That's one word, Envirotech?
Yes.
Envirotech, and your website is envirotechkc.com.
EnvirotechKS.com.
I'm sorry,
Close.
KS. Yeah. We live in Kansas City. You'd think I'd know Kansas,
Yeah.
KS, right? You think I'd know that. So it's envirotechks.com. So check out his website. What do you guys do over in Envirotech?
We do primarily residential and light commercial service replacement work.
And what's the hardest part about being in that business?
Ooh, that's tough. It changes every day, Right now, the supply and demand is probably one of the things that's holding you back a little bit. In the past, it's been, finding good coworkers. The business part of it seems to just come. It's the management and, controlling the people and the processes and procedures that seems to be the challenge. So, but right now the challenge it seems to be just getting your hands on product more than anything.
Really? So supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Getting furnaces, air handlers. What's the hardest thing to get right now?
Coils. We've ordered condensing coils for refrigeration units, and they're on order, but they're not here. We've got a heat exchanger, for instance, that's on order from one of the big manufacturers, and it's been on order now for 2 weeks. We received one; it was damaged. We sent it back. They have one in stock, and it's for a commercial rooftop unit. So, there's not necessarily something that's hard to get over anything else. It's just in general that's kind of the challenge right now.
I see. How about equipment?
Equipment, you can get it. You just can't get it today sometimes. So it just depends on, what you're ordering as well. So some of the more common residential stuff you can get your hands on pretty easily. Maybe not today, but within a day or two.
Okay.
But, I couldn't pinpoint something that, you just cannot get right now. It's just taking a little longer to get it than it has been in the past.
And I understand there's really a lot of uncertainty as well. So you don't know if you can get it quickly or at all.
Right.
You might, but you might not.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. So you tend to sell what you have available,
Yeah. So are the real high efficient units harder to get?
No, not necessarily. Nope.
Okay.
No.
How about the demand? Are you having any trouble, relatively speaking, getting the business?
No. I think if you take care of your customers, you do what you say, you show up when you say you're going to show up, that tends to take care of itself. And you can rely on a lot of referrals off of that as well. So getting the customers, and retaining them, is something that I don't think that's changed over the last several years. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're fulfilling all your promises, that seems to not be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm speaking with James Gallett. He's the president of Envirotech in Kansas City. Website is envirotechks.com if you want to check them out. They do residential, light commercial, HVAC, and refrigeration.
A little bit of, yes.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Refrigeration?
Yeah.
To me, that's like, you do refrigeration when you're like a black belt service tech, right? I mean, because anybody can do, medium temp. It's the low temp stuff that's hard.
Right.
So I like refrigeration as well. So what did you do today? What's your average day look like? You woke up, got to the office. What happened?
Oh man, it was nonstop for a couple hours, just with people in and out of the office. We're actually getting ready to start a big project down in Springfield, Missouri. So we had a meeting with that customer to go over some of the details of that project.
At your office?
It was a Zoom meeting. Or a Teams meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was I think 7 of us on that meeting total, with customer and people in our facility. So that took up a little bit of the time this morning, and then we were basically staging for that job today. We're rolling out Monday morning to head down to Springfield with 4 of us are heading down there to get started on the project. So
now, will you be staying there overnight or driving back?
Yeah, it's a pretty long project for us. It's one of the biggest ones we've taken on. So we'll have 4 guys there for probably 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, Monday through Thursday. Come home on the weekends.
They'll come home?
Yeah.
And so you have them staying at a hotel?
Yep.
How did they like that?
I've asked for volunteers, so it wasn't a requirement,
Yeah.
And most of the guys wanted to go, so I don't know if they just wanted to get away from the kids and stuff at home, or if they just think it's cool to go, work out of town. So there's not been any resistance to us. So we did a project this summer too with myself and 2 other guys. We drove up to Cody, Wyoming, and did a project. So it was fun. It was you got to do a little road trip. You got to bond. So those out-of-town projects, we don't do a ton of them, but 2 guys were in western Kansas today putting a chiller in. So they're more commercial on that, but the guys seem to like it, and it's been good, and I'm getting good feedback, I guess, on who's wanting to go and participate in those projects. So.
My family, they would pay extra to have me leave town on a job.
Right. I've had some wives call me and say, can you please take this guy?
Yeah. So what about warranty work? Would you have to drive all that distance to do warranty work?
Yeah, we better do it right the first time. So, yeah.
No kidding.
Yep.
How do you make sure you do it right the first time?
Processes and procedures, and following the installation checklist, and just being super, super thorough. Cody, Wyoming was really weird when it hit right when we were kind of slow, so it was nice. It was something that, we took a lot of extra time just pulling a vacuum, and the little things that you might just not do right sometimes. We made sure we did all of that right, and we should be doing all that right all the time. But I know that stuff in the world gets sidestepped, and side cuts and shortcuts and stuff. So we just made sure that we were very thorough, and that's been something that we talk about too, is being super thorough, and hopefully that carries over to everything we're doing here in town as well. We're building a better company and a better tech and a better person by going out of town and knowing that if something goes wrong, we're driving up there to do it on our own time. So
So you cover the hotel, food, all that stuff.
Yep.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
I think that, especially for a younger person or older, not in the middle like you are, but young or old like me, that'd be a lot of fun.
Right. Well, I'm one of the old guys at work now. So
are you?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm used to being the young guy. Yeah.
And so personal reflection here. You and I have known each other pretty long time.
Yeah, since '94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was the youngest guy in the room always, especially as an owner. I was always the youngest guy, youngest owner around. Now I'm an old guy. You became an owner. You were always the youngest owner in the room.
Right.
Right. Now
Right.
you're an old guy.
Yeah. Now I'm the old
Older
dude.
guy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
A little thin on top.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're training as a pilot?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Okay. So James, training as a private pilot, one thing private pilot will tell you is that it is a federal law that you have to follow a checklist. It's not just a good idea. It's not recommended. It's a law. You have to follow a checklist. They wanted it to be so serious that you have to follow a checklist to be a pilot. As an example, when you're getting ready to take off, you've got a checklist. Same true with a good installation, right? I heard you say checklists.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of checklists because of my training as a pilot. I just think that checklists are so important. And if they weren't, why would a pilot with 20 years experience need a checklist?
Right.
I mean, she knows what she's doing. She doesn't need a checklist, right?
Right.
But obviously she does.
Right.
We all do.
Right.
It's easy to forget those things and get that call back. And then you're driving back to Wyoming or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So that's part of your quality control, the checklist. I think that's a good idea. People ask me all the time, and other business owners, what do you do all day? What did you do when you first got here? So let's go back to the office this morning. You had people in and out of your building. Then you got on a Teams Zoom type call with your client to talk about the job.
Right.
And how long did that take?
That was about an hour.
All right.
Yeah.
So when that was over, what time is it?
Now it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10 a.m. Yep.
Then what happens?
So then we discussed the schedule for that project and coordinated picking up some of the material we needed and how we're going to load it. And, so now it's noon by the time we get done just dealing with that one project. Mm-hmm. I had to do a payroll import today. Mm-hmm. So our payroll is, we use a outside payroll source, and so we have to import it into our total office manager. And so today was the day that I had to do that. So that was taken care of. And then you got to deposit your, deposits for the 401 or your simple IRA plan. So that chewed up an hour of the day. And I had a couple commercial estimates that I was working on. Talked with our salesman. So there's
your internal salesperson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's looking at the schedule with the dispatcher. I really can't say what I do every day because it changes, and it's just kind of, next thing you know, it's 3 or 4 o'clock and you've been busy all day.
Yeah.
But you can't say this is my job, what your tasks are every day, because it changes on a daily basis.
Now, some people, I'm sure, that are really successful. Maybe they're more successful than you are, however that's defined. I mean, you could be a successful minister or a successful anything. So however you define success, I mean, you and I, we see people we look up to and we think they're much more successful than we are. Don't you wonder how they manage their 24/7 differently than ours?
Right.
Like Bill Gates has the same 24 hours a day as we do. I always wonder, well, what does he eat for breakfast?
Right.
What does he do when he first wakes up?
Right.
How does he handle all those interruptions? And do you ever think about that?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm asking you these questions, because I'm hoping to figure out something new here tonight.
Right.
What do I do with my day? How do you become more efficient?
We have a high school intern that's coming in 2 days a week too, and so today was the day he came in, and his project he's working on is updating our retail price book for service and repair. Mm-hmm. So we worked on that a little bit. But yeah, I'm sure they have the same struggles that we do. Whatever, like you said, the definition of success is those people who we see as truly successful.
Yeah. Because even head coaches, they're so similar, but then the tiny differences obviously make all the difference in the world. I really think that highly successful people do maybe 20 things 5% better, but they're not doing anything twice as good as you,
right?
3 times better than you. I don't think so. I mean, I think they have consistency and grit. They just stick with it. But everything they do is a little better than we're doing it. That's kind of what I think. Because I really haven't met anyone that was just unbelievably good at any particular thing running an office.
Right.
How do you make time to work on the company, to study the books, look at the financials, think about your flat rate pricing books and marketing and all that?
So you just have to set aside time to do that. Here up until a few months ago, I was working from home one day a week, away from, the in and out of the office, people coming in and out of your office, so you could focus on the business. So I kind of got out of that habit. I felt like I was needed back in the office, so I got out of that, doing that. But that was one thing that I was doing to help, work on the business. Another thing is I'm involved with the ACCA mixed group, and we meet on a regular basis. So some of those guys hold me accountable too.
Good.
So that, you're talking business with other business owners that are in non-competing territories. Which is really, really nice. And they've helped me out tremendously since I joined the group in 2006.
Good. Yeah, I've heard that that's extremely helpful. And the accountability part I keep hearing all about.
Yeah.
It's so nice. I mean, as an owner, you're not accountable to anyone, really. I mean, yes, you are, because you have to pay everybody, and you're the head coach, essentially. But really, when it comes down to it, nobody can do anything about you being late tomorrow.
Right.
You could just show up late, not meet your appointments, not show up for a sales call or whatever, and no one's going to do anything about it. If enough customers fire you, you're out of business, but there's no accountability, right?
Right.
I think that's a hard part about being self-employed, and I think a lot of people fail there because they're not disciplined. What do you think?
I'd totally agree with you, yep.
They don't have the discipline.
Yep.
What made you want to be a business owner?
Probably ignorance more than anything.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
Same here.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to be an idiot to want to own a business.
Yeah.
Of course, we're kidding, but not totally kidding, right?
Right.
Because I think that a lot of people who become self-employed don't really understand they're giving up a boss for about 500 bosses. And that you get paid less usually for quite a while. You work way more hours. You put up with a lot more crap from everybody.
Right.
Your employees, customers, etc. And you think to yourself, why am I doing this? But eventually, it pays off. It's supposed to anyway.
Hopefully, yeah.
But for most people, and failure rate's really high, but for most people, they never see that payoff. They just stop because they think, I don't know why I'm even doing this. I think I'm just going to go back to working for somebody else.
Right.
If you want to be a millionaire, as my son pointed out during one of our shows, he sent me this text message during the show, and I'm not supposed to look at my phone, but I had my phone here, as I do now, monitoring the show, and I see this text message. And anyway, my son Jordan talks about how to become a millionaire. He reminds me that if you just took $1 out of your hourly wage, so if you were to pay me $25 an hour, if I just took $1 and put it into the S&P 500, and I did that my whole career, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I mean, I could be a millionaire if you just gave me $2 a day, just $2 a day even. Put it in the S&P 500, work till I'm 62, I'm a millionaire. But if it was $1 an hour, I'm a multimillionaire. So anybody can be a millionaire. If that's the goal, just keep working for James here.
Right.
And it's an easier life. And put $1 an hour into the S&P 500, which returns about 16% a year on average. Now you're a millionaire, multimillionaire.
Right.
In fact.
Right.
So it would be a whole lot easier working for somebody else in most cases.
Yeah.
So why don't you? What drives you as an entrepreneur? What makes you want to keep doing it?
It changes over the years. So now that I'm one of the old guys, we've got younger guys that are working with us, younger people that are working with us. And so it's me seeing them succeed that makes it rewarding. So that's one thing that I think drives me more than anything now is just, and that just happened, within the last few years is I've got a younger group coming in, and we don't hire with experience anymore necessarily. We like to train. So just that drive of finding someone who has that mechanical ability, who has that work ethic like I do, and they're able to come, work in our family business. So no one works for me. They work with me, and we're all a team. So I think what drives me right now is just seeing, people succeed around me, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's awesome. I think that's why a lot of people own businesses, get into coaching and mentoring. And in fact, coaching, you do some coaching as a hobby, don't you?
Yep.
And what is that?
Right now it's wrestling. I've coached wrestling for the last 15 years. I run our local youth, I don't run it by myself, obviously, but I started our youth program in my hometown, and this is our 11th season. We're the biggest club in the whole state right now, which is kind of cool.
Really?
But it's also almost like a double-edged sword. So we have a ton of kids in our program.
Wow.
But we've got a bunch of good coaches and good parents and support system, so it's really cool. But yeah, wrestling is what I'm coaching. I coached softball in the past too, but my daughter's in third year of college, so that's her team that I used to coach. And
Your daughter's
I'm
in her third year of college.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Time goes by fast.
Really fast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3 kids? Yeah. And how many wives?
One that I can talk about on the show.
1 wife, 3 kids. Yeah. Of course, I have met your kids, but that was back when they were very young. I mean, I haven't seen them in a long, long time.
Right.
But to hear second year of college is incredible.
Right.
It's like, what?
Yeah, 2 in college and 1 in high school.
Yeah. When did they go to high school? I'm thinking.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
When did I get out of high school?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about the supply chain being an issue. The other issue that I hear a lot, of course, is it's really hard to get good people. It's hard to keep your hands on those people. We heard earlier you were talking about how you stopped hiring for experience, and I think I read into it that you're looking for things you can't train for, like hard work, work ethic, mechanical aptitude. What else are you looking for in a person when you're hiring them?
Those are really big, important things right there. So, attitude. Attitude's contagious, and, people's attitudes can change over time as they get stuck in a rut. They stop enjoying their job. So when that happens, it's time for them to move on and find something else to do. Most of the time they don't do that. People just stay around and they're, disgruntled and blaming their troubles on everybody around them. So we try to find people who have a really, really positive attitude, they're willing to do about anything. I've never personally been scared to try anything, whether it be working on a refrigeration unit, ice machines, furnaces, air. I don't care what it was. I was never scared to work on it. Yeah. There's some things I don't like to work on, such as cars, but I'm not scared of them. I just don't want to do it. So we try to find people that have that same kind of mindset, and whether they're, right out of college, right out of high school, maybe this is their second career because they've been, and I'm talking about some people that work with us now, but they've been doing something else for the last 20 years, and they're looking for something else. So more attitude and mechanical ability when it comes to the people in the field. Mm-hmm. Attitude and just personality when it comes to people in the office. They're greeting those guys coming in during the summer when it's 100 degrees and they're hot and maybe a little grumpy. So yeah. Just personalities are something that's really important.
What do you think makes a good technician, a good demand service tech?
Probably just that positive attitude and the ability to be able to talk to people. So, if you mess something up and you're able to, express your empathy with the customer and apologize, and the company can make it right, then that goes a long way as opposed to, trying to cover it up. So, so that would go back to trustworthy, I guess. So just someone who's, got a positive attitude. They're good with talking to people. They're trustworthy, and you can train how to work on equipment and how to install equipment, but some of those other traits in life are hard to train.
Right. I mean, I think maybe the best you can do is slightly improve them.
Right.
But you certainly can't make them.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed how a technician with a great personality can sell more without trying and can have higher customer satisfaction scores with far more callbacks?
Right.
And you'll have customers call and apologize for bothering them. I'm sorry, James was out here and he messed up my furnace. Could you please ask him to come back out? It's not working again.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have a fantastic tech and they're grumpy about it because that personality can just get away with those things.
Right.
Definitely. And I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, I know.
We've had people that weren't very good and everybody apologized for them. I'm sorry to bother them to come back out. It's freezing in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the better tech and they're mad at the tech because he has to come back out, which might be rare. But it's just that personality can just solve so many problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So installers, I was talking about demand techs. Do you find installers, is it about the same or are installers a little bit different than demand service techs?
No. So one probably unique thing about us is we try to cross-train all of our guys. It helps with scheduling a lot. So if you have a technician who can go out and do demand service and also install, they have a better understanding of how the system works, how it's supposed to be installed, why is airflow so important on an install when you're setting up, the furnace. What am I looking at as far as duct work and duct sizing goes? So our technicians do both. Now, we've got some guys that specialize more so in some of the commercial or refrigeration, and they don't necessarily do a ton of the, installs, but everybody is capable of doing a little bit of everything. So we probably are to the point where we need to split that up, but
it does give you a lot more flexibility, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the guys, they're not just stuck doing like, oh, I got to go put a system in today.
Yeah.
I got to go put it in, no, now today I'm gonna go run maintenance calls, or I get to go do something different. So.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting into this business, whether you're plumbing, electrical, HVAC, our recommendation would be do both because you're just far more employable. They'll keep you more busy. You'll get more hours. And I think installing makes you a better tech, and being a tech makes you a better installer, as you mentioned. There's no doubt about that. Plus, I think both are fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to do both.
Right.
I wouldn't want to do one or the other, though. Would you?
All the time?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm going out to do something right now, I'll usually go do an install.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, you're building something and you're at one place. So last summer I had to do a few installs. So we were busy. We had customers that needed something. And so I jumped in the truck and went and put a job in with the guys. So
how much time do you spend turning a wrench?
None. I mean, I did 2 or 3 installs last year.
Okay.
But yeah, for the most part, my mixed group made sure I got out of the field.
Good.
So
good. Was that hard?
Super hard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. In fact, I drove a truck with a box on the back of it with parts and tools in it still while I was not in the field for a couple of years, just because I couldn't let go of that.
I understand that. I think, once you're a tech, you're always a tech, especially when you start out as one. You're always a tech, and you feel like you're naked without your tools, and you want to have them with you at all times.
Right.
And if you're going to have tools, you might as well have parts.
Right. Right.
So now you're driving a service truck again.
Right.
So are you guys having any trouble with staffing?
No, I wouldn't say trouble with staffing. We could probably add another 1 or 2 field technicians or field, apprentices this coming year. But I would rather have a shorter or a smaller staff and have better quality than, just add 3 or 4 more guys and let them go after the summer, to get you through the busy season. So I don't think we're having an issue with it right now, but we will get busy and we'll be working longer hours. And but that also helps whenever it's slow out.
Right.
And, you are somewhat weather driven still, even though everybody's in denial that it's kind of a weather driven industry.
Yeah.
I believe it still is to a certain extent. So
I do too.
So when it's 70 degrees in March and no one's using anything, you still have enough work to keep everybody busy. And that's one of my things is my wife and I try to make sure everybody is getting a paycheck. You don't want to lay people off. You want to keep them busy. You want to, I know that everyone in there's got to feed a family.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, I think it is weather driven, and it definitely depends on where you're at. Now, for those of you who don't know where we're from, we're in the Kansas City area. We're right outside Kansas City. This is Lenexa, Kansas. And we have in this area a beautiful fall and a beautiful spring. And by beautiful, I don't mean by HVAC terms, because we hate it. Like when we say the weather's beautiful, it's super hot or super cold. To us, that's beautiful weather. But in this area, it's very common to have open your windows weather.
Right.
And you don't run heat. You don't run air conditioning. You might be a little cool at night, a little warm maybe, but it's so comfortable you don't want to run the system. And then people in our business, your business, don't have anything to do.
Right.
So it's really tough. I know it's tough everywhere, but it's been my experience working in this industry as a consultant, having friends in the business all over the country. This is one of the worst places for the shoulder seasons. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Have you talked to your mixed group and others about it?
Yeah.
We have the worst shoulder season, I think.
Right.
This area does because of our spring and fall. But maybe with global warming, it'll always be hot.
I don't know.
Who
It's going to
knows?
snow Sunday. It was 70 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very common here. We just had 8 or 10 inches, depending on where you were. We had 8 or 10 inches of snow, and then 3 days after that, 70 degrees. Right? I'm not exaggerating.
No, yeah. $360 to plow the driveway,
and it would have melted.
Yeah, 4 days later.
Yep, it would have melted if we just waited long enough.
Yep.
That's just crazy. So I heard you say the mixed group's been really important for you, especially to help you make the transition from working in your company to working on it. What other things would you recommend to somebody who's still out there running service calls, having a hard time getting out of the field? What recommendations would you have to them?
I think we've been really good at you just got to stop doing what you're doing. So even, our software program, and now I'm going to plug Aptora. Shouldn't plug Aptora, I know. But
that's okay. That's my day job.
Yeah.
My day job is running Aptora.
I'm going to plug it. So
software company.
We switched over to the Aptora in 2007, and I've heard other companies that have switched software programs. So, but you came in and did some training with us for, I think, 3 or 4 days, kind of got us set up. We unplugged the old computer that had Peachtree financing.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do anything on that software, and I didn't know how to do anything on Aptora at first either. I'm a total office manager. But, we unplugged it and kept it because it was a security blanket. So we had this computer sitting in there for probably 3 or 4 years that had all of our old stuff on it. But the day that you left the office, we never went back and plugged that old server in. And I've heard of companies that, even in my mixed group, they're still using the old with the new because they're trying to get used to the new. And I just say you stop. When we switched over to going paperless and doing mobile, so our invoices are now on, our iPhones. They used to be on a tablet. We did some training in the office and handed everybody a tablet and said, give me your invoices. And everything was then just paperless, I guess, for customer invoices. You had some customers that wanted their paper invoice, so we would mail them a copy. But I think you just got to, stop doing what you're used to doing and start doing what you're supposed to be doing. So when it came to me getting out of the field, it was, I'm not running any more service calls today from here on. And so I came back from a mixed group meeting, and that's how it happened. And then they got me where you got to hire a salesman. So you got to hire a salesman and you got to quit selling. So we, how are we going to do that? So we empowered somebody from within, and they became our salesman. and he's since moved on. But the reality is, I quit selling, so we had a actual salesman, someone who focused on selling. So if you do too many things, so as a technician / owner, if you're doing too many of the things yourself, you're probably not doing a really good job at all of them, and I would say at most of them. Mm-hmm. So you got to just unplug the old, plug in the new, and don't look back.
Yeah, you make it sound simple, and it is, because you said you got to stop doing what you're doing when you know you should be doing something else. And I think most people in our industry, any industry really, that little voice is telling them, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I shouldn't be in the kitchen. I should be out there with the diners.
Right.
Or I shouldn't be running service. I should be thinking about payroll next week or my flat rate book pricing or whatever. But they just don't, because they may not be comfortable, but they know where they're at.
Right.
So they don't make that change.
Right.
And I think that's another reason why most companies don't grow. They don't scale, because it's really hard to transition out of in it to on it. Right. It's tough to do that.
Right.
Easier said than done. You mentioned software. I wanted to mention to everybody that it's really important, and forget our software, it doesn't matter whose software you're using. It's really important to find software to help you run your company, because software is all about eliminating double entry. Really, when it comes down to it, when you invest in software, you're investing in a computerized bookkeeping system. It's really bookkeeping, not accounting. People will say, I'm going to buy accounting software, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it's really not accounting software. It's bookkeeping software. It helps you do all the things you would do if you didn't have software, such as shuffling, managing, controlling about 35 different documents. You have work orders and purchase orders and packing slips, invoices, sales receipts, inventory reports and inventory movement sheets, and all kinds of paperwork. And software has those forms built into it. And the advantage is it just makes sure that once you've entered a customer, you never enter that twice. And anyway, the point I'm trying to make with this is companies tend to overestimate the software's ability to organize their company. If your company is unorganized and you don't have paperwork, you don't use forms, you don't control those forms, you don't file things properly, buying software just automates that mess. And that's why a lot of companies keep switching software. It's like a divorce. This next husband or wife looks better, and then they get a divorce, they remarry, in this case a software program, and they find out it's not that great. But then a friend told them about something, and they get it, and they're not happy with it. It all comes down to, and I know because I deal with people like this almost every day, it all comes down to you have to have paper systems in your company first. Your company has to have a paper work order and know what to do with it. Your company has to have a paper invoice, a paper service agreement, a paper purchase order, and know what to do with it. Know exactly how to fill it out, where to put a copy of it, where to put another copy of it. Until you have all that done, the software isn't really going to help you, because it just computerizes those processes that you don't know how to do anyway. So it's really important for all of you, before you switch software, sit down and think about your processes. Think about the major forms that run your company. And again, they're work orders, invoices, service agreements, your flat rate book, purchase orders, timesheets, and I could go on. If you don't know exactly who's supposed to do what with those forms, software isn't going to help you, and certainly switching software isn't going to help you. And frankly, I'm surprised you haven't switched software, because so many companies switch software thinking, if I just do this, life is going to get so much better.
Right.
We just need a different program. Haven't you seen that a lot?
Yeah.
And it doesn't usually.
Right.
It's like
right.
They're just as miserable with a new husband or wife
right.
software program.
I would say we have switched software a little bit. We went from paper to mobile to now we're cloud-based. So we switched. We just stayed with the same
true.
team.
Yeah, that's true. You went from desktop and then added mobile and then went cloud.
Right.
So it's not on premises, as we call it.
Right.
Has that been better?
Yes. Yeah. especially, when I took that time and was working from home.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're remote.
COVID caused a lot of
Oh.
companies to think about the cloud.
Right.
And you might have saw our show. I know you never miss one. You might have saw our show on cybersecurity. That is so important now that people are on the cloud doesn't mean you're immune to viruses, ransomware, stuff like that. It's really important to think about cybersecurity, but it's a little easier when you're on the cloud because not everything is what we call on premises.
Right.
And there's usually it's usually safer when it's out on the cloud because those people know what they're doing.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. We hope. And at least that's their job to know what they're doing, and we can't part-time that.
Right.
We were talking about trying to help contractors make the transition from working in it to on it. And what I mean by that anyway is that most of us start a company, any company, it doesn't matter what you do. We focus on the field service industry. That's like any company that hops in a vehicle, drives to a commercial or residential building, installs, fixes, or maintains things. That's the field service industry. We're talking about trying to help people scale those companies. And in the beginning, that means making the transition from working in it to on it. So rather than being in that all day long and people are controlling you, you have to get outside of all that and work on it. And James was telling us that the mixed group has been very helpful. Having the right software has been very helpful. And he said it's really important to think about what you should be doing and stop doing what you're doing. So I'm trying to summarize where we're at.
Yeah.
Now I was going to ask you for what's the next step. So you're doing those things. Are there books that you would recommend to people?
My favorite book is Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I'd recommend that book. I've read all the self-help books that are probably the most common out there. I couldn't tell you what book would be the best book. Yeah, you caught me off guard with the book question.
Yeah.
So,
well, for me, when I was young, it was the E-Myth.
Yeah, I read that.
Because that was about working on it and not in it. And that's how I got that term. It came from the E-Myth. And Rich Man, Poor Dad, tell me what's the basic theme of that?
So, you take a job basically for the experience, not for the money. It talks a lot about, buying assets and not liabilities and just, the way that rich people think versus poor people, I guess. And I grew up, and was not rich by any means. My dad worked at convenience stores when I was a little kid. He eventually got a job with, driving a truck, which made us more money, but I was not, we didn't have money growing up. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of just shows you the way that different people think about what you do with your money. And you're not taking a job just because they're paying you another $2 an hour. I don't think I ever asked for a raise, and probably because my former boss, who we bought the company from, he gave me that book, when I was 21 years old, and I've had a couple good mentors, he being one of them in my life. So
at 21, you read that book, and it had obviously quite an impact on you.
Yeah.
So give us an example for people that are hearing what you're saying and they're not familiar with the concept of the book and thinking like a rich person. How do rich people think that's different than how poor people think? Can you give an example?
Well, I am not a rich person, so I couldn't tell you how they think. But
I saw that watch that you bought.
It's pretty cool watch.
The Gallet watch. So James' last name is Gallet. He came across the Gallet watch and bought himself a nice watch. We were talking about that before the show.
Yeah.
But anyway, is there an example you can think of that you probably have? I won't call them poor, but maybe your family's like mine. I have some people that in my family and circle that make good money and some that don't make good money at all. And I can think about how they're different.
Right. Some people make good money, but they have no money.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's about saving money and, I built my own houses, so I've never bought a house that was already built. I bought ground, and we built our own home with our own, hands.
Yeah, let me stop you there, because that's an amazing story in itself. When people say, I built my own home, they mean they bought land, hired people, the people hired people, and they built the home and they moved in. You built your home with your hands.
Yes.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you drove the nails.
The first house more so than the last one, but yeah.
That's because you're a big shot now. You don't have to drive every nail.
Well, they have nail guns now. And I had a good uncle and cousin that really helped us out.
Well, that was really amazing. I mean, you built the house. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What an experience that was.
Yeah, that was fun. So I guess that's one way, whenever we were 23 years old, a lot of my buddies were buying motorcycles and brand new trucks and, whatever fun, cool toys that a 23-year-old who started making money could go buy. And my wife, which we weren't married at the time, we were still, dating, but we bought land and we built our own house, and we moved out of our parents' house after we were married into the house that we built. So, and we shoveled snow off the roof and let it dry so we could put shingles on, the next day. We hung the sheetrock, we wired it, we did the HVAC, framed it. So everything except for the foundation walls on our first home, we did ourselves, with the help of, family and friends. But we were, 22 years old when we started that. Lived there for 14 years and bought some more ground, and we built a barn dominium that we lived in.
Barn dominium?
Barn dominium.
Like that.
So the goats were having babies 20 feet from the bedroom, So we were born in a barn, raised in a barn, whatever you want to call it.
That's hilarious.
And then we built the house that we're in now too. So the house that we're in now, I had to start subbing some of the stuff out, so I didn't do any of the siding on the outside, and I didn't put the shingles on the roof this time. But it was starting to stress me out.
Shingle work is hard, isn't it?
So my mixed group told me, you got to quit working on that house, and hire it out some. So we ended up hiring a little bit of it out.
And you bought your building, your commercial building that you're in, right?
Yep.
So you own that. And have you noticed how you buy all these things, you somehow find a way to make the payments, and then you get to be your age and you realize you own all that, or at least you have a lot of equity in it.
Right.
And you didn't, kind of just piss away the money on TVs and jet skis and stuff like that, and you own a bunch of stuff the other people don't own.
Right. Oh, you're lucky probably, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's all luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, people will say that. I think that one difference between the rich people and the poor people is poor people tend to look at the self-made rich and say, well, a lot of that was luck. And I really can understand that, because from their perspective, they don't see all the little things that went into creating the opportunity to take advantage of a luck opportunity. I think it was Thomas Edison that said that luck was when preparation met opportunity. No, it was Einstein. Einstein said that luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and I believe that.
Right.
I remember Arnold Palmer, that dates me, but I was a little kid. I remember him saying on TV when asked about a lucky putt, he said, it's funny, the more I practice, the luckier I seem to be getting. And I think that's a difference between rich people and poor people, one of them.
Right.
What do you think?
Yep, I agree.
Another thing I've noticed, rich people versus poor people, I like this topic, by the way. Rich people think in terms of return on investment, and I bet you do as well. They don't think about an expense, like this is going to cost $1,000. They think that I'm going to invest $1,000, and I'm going to make $2,000. And so they find the money, because it's not an expense, it's an investment.
Right.
Is that how you think?
Yes. Yeah.
I heard you use the investment word earlier.
Case in point was we just sent 2 of our younger guys down to Texas to a 2-week training class, and it wasn't cheap, but they came back and they've got some skill sets now that they didn't have when they went down there, and hopefully they stick around for a while.
Yeah. Well, you spent all this money. What if they just quit?
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't do that. So,
right.
Yeah. I wouldn't just send any guy that, came walking in tomorrow down to this class, but, these 2 guys, I think they're hopefully they're going to stick around. So,
I was asked about that once upon a time, and I don't think I invented this response, but someone said, what if I spend all this money and they quit? And my answer was, well, what if you don't spend any money and they stay?
yeah,
And then what do you got?
right.
You know? Colin, I think Colin's our producer behind the camera.
Well, I just wanted to give some input. So they say the new rich is when you own your home, no mortgage.
The new rich is
Regardless
when
of
you
whatever
own
the
your
house
home
costs.
with no mortgage.
Yeah, regardless if it's $150,000 house, $500,000 house, if you don't have a mortgage, that's the new rich.
The new rich. So Colin is saying, and speaking of investments, I think I'm going to invest in a microphone for Colin.
Yeah.
Because he's always got these great things to say. But he's saying that the young people now are thinking you're rich when you own your home. You don't have a mortgage. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm comfortable with leverage. I will borrow all the money in the world, especially when money is just almost free. And right now, you have interest rates beginning to tick up, but money has been free basically for years. And you're crazy not to borrow as much money as you possibly can, as long as you're not buying TVs and jet skis. You're buying lands and barns and building homes and buying equipment, because eventually you'll own it outright, but it'll be producing income for you.
Right.
And I think that's a big difference between the people I've seen that are successful and the people that have really struggled, and I have both in my own family, is they put their money to work for them, and other people just blow the money. You said that earlier. They're wanting a raise. They quit, go get another job so they can have a raise. But what's the raise for? To buy more land? No. It's to buy more jet skis, TVs, and other crap
Right.
that they
Right.
don't have and don't know where it went 10 years from now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. I haven't read that book, to be honest with you. But I think it's really good advice not to keep chasing the raises. You know, so if you're a young person out there, young or old, don't get caught up in chasing the raise. You take the job for the experience and you try to climb that ladder, but it doesn't really help you to jump from job to job to job chasing these raises. What you want to do is chase the experience, because it's all about learning more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a fascinating topic, I think, anyway, trying to figure out the differences in how rich people, self-made rich people, not those who inherited it, self-made rich people, how they think versus, I'll say poor people, whatever that means, but not making so much. Funny thing you said earlier, and that is there are people making a lot of money that don't have any money, and they think differently too.
Right.
You know, they're always spending what they have.
Right.
And a lot of us will be in that situation where we do make a bunch of money, but we have nothing to show for it. I'll give you an example of leveraging. So when I went to buy a new car, and I buy a new car every 10 years, and I have a 20-some-year-old car and a 12-something-year-old car, and now I have a nearly 2-year-old car. So I don't even get rid of them. I still have them. Now they're worth a lot of money, by the way, in this market, right?
Yeah, that's the only time a car is an investment. Yeah.
Yeah, now I can sell them and get some good money for them, but I just don't get rid of them because I can loan them out, loan them to people, or use them as backups or whatever. But anyway, when I buy the car, I finance 100% of it, and I finance the sales tax. The sales tax, which you're nuts to do that if you listen to any of these self-help TV shows, you know, on the radio or TV that give advice. They tell you, well, you don't want to borrow money and you don't want to own a fancy car and blah, blah, blah. But I do the opposite. I don't get a fancy car necessarily, but I get a good car. I finance 100% of it, and I ask them to put the sales tax in there too, and I finance that. Because when they'll give me 1.9% interest, I'm nuts to pay any money down. And why is that? Because if you look at your balance sheet and you look at your equity and you compare your equity to your net profit. So to make the math easy, let's say that in a company you've got $100,000 in equity and you have 25% net profit. 25,000. or 25,000 is what I meant to say. So on your balance sheet, you have all your assets, all your liabilities, whatever's left over is your equity. Let's pretend that's 100 grand. And let's also pretend that you're fairly compensated to own the company, but when it's all said and done, you've got 25,000 left over in net profit. You with me? Well, that's a 25% return on equity. Because you got 100,000 in equity, you have 25,000 in net profit. That's a 25% return on your company's equity. So if somebody will give you money at 2%, 3%, 4%, and you put it to work in your business getting 25%, well, then you're way ahead. What's bad is when they want, say, 20% interest. And then it's just too close. Mm-hmm. Just doesn't make sense. Plus, you have to put forth the effort to get that money working for you. But when it's 2%, 3%, 4%, it's a no-brainer. So I'm more than happy to be completely upside down on that vehicle because I will drive it for 10 years because I don't need a new car every few years when I know they're a bad investment. So people might say, well, if they're such a bad investment, why did you finance 100% of it and even the sales tax? Because of the leverage. You take that money and put it to work somewhere else. And that's no different than investing in a tool. You know, you said earlier that you don't have to drive nails anymore with a hammer because they have something called a nail gun.
Right.
Well, why would you spend money on a nail gun? They're not free, are they? Well, no one would say spend money on a nail gun. I mean, you're not going to save money with a hammer. It's going to save you money to buy a nail gun. Forget what they cost. Who cares? Well, that's what I'm getting at. You have to think in terms of putting your capital to work for you so that it has a return on investment. And I think that's one of the most important things I've learned as an older guy is that rich people got rich because they think poor, and poor people stay poor because they think and act like they're rich. And so rich people don't need to clip coupons. Rich people don't need to get things on sale. But then rich people want to clip the coupons and they want to get things on sale because they want to save some money and put that money to work somewhere else. And they'll only try to save money when there's a good return on investment. They would never drive 30 minutes to save 15 cents a gallon of gas, knowing that they can only put 20 gallons in their vehicle.
Right.
They think about the return on investment constantly. And to me, that's the big difference between the rich and the poor. What are your thoughts?
I agree. Yeah.
Always think return on investment. How can I get the most for my money and time? Looks like we had a question or comment, Colin?
No, it was Eric.
Comment. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So talked about books a little bit. In the few minutes that we have left, tell us, if you could go back and talk to the early James, the James that was just starting to run Envirotech as an owner, if you could go back and talk to that person, what would you tell them?
That's a good question. Probably be prepared for, downturns more so. I'm a big believer in not having any regrets. So when you do something, you don't look back on what if. So I really don't know what I would tell myself. Other than just try to watch your money a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
Be prepared for those downturns. We had a couple of them in the last 21 years that we've been in business or that we've owned the business. So, but experiences make you who you are today. So I don't believe that I would change anything that I've done over the past, 21 years of being the business owner. Mm-hmm. Or even prior to that as, the guy that was going to JUCO and working at a parts house and working in the field before we bought the business. So
that's pretty awesome. If you don't have a lot to tell yourself back then you're doing a lot of things right. I will say this, when I first met you, I saw that work ethic and I saw the great smile and the great personality. And I thought, those are things you can't train for. Everything else will come as long as the desire is there. And so I'm not surprised that you're the person you are today. And I'm not surprised that you're the great father, unless you got me fooled.
Maybe.
I think you're a great father, great husband, and certainly everything I know about you says so. I'm not surprised. I saw that early on.
That's kind of you to say that. So
no, you deserve it. Yeah. You deserve it. All right. Well, I think that pretty well wraps up this hour. Hour went by fast, didn't it?
it did. Yeah, I did. Too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you've done such a good job. We might give you one of these Field Service Live coffee cups.
Nice.
So that's a pretty cool gift.
I'm old enough now I can drink coffee.
All right. Well, I want to thank our guest, James Gallett from Envirotech here in Kansas City. The website is envirotechks.com, right? If you'd like to check him out and contact him. It's been great having him as a guest. Like I said, we're here to help the field service industry be more successful, whatever that means to you, successful. We hope that you will click that like button and subscribe to the channel. That helps us more than I can tell you, because YouTube's algorithm, their bots, their algorithm looks at all that, and that's how they decide if we're worth promoting. So we would appreciate any support you could get. Once again, James, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Colin, thank you for your help back there behind the camera. And I will say goodnight to everybody. Thank you very much.